You are sick. You have been sick for 3 days. There is a swelling under your arm the size of a fist, and it appeared overnight. You know what it means. Everyone in your city knows what it means. Your family sends for the doctor. He arrives wearing a long waxed leather coat, a wide-brimmed hat, gloves, and a mask shaped like a bird's beak. Inside the beak, dried flowers, herbs, spices. He believes the smell will protect him from the bad air that causes the disease. He examines you. He nods. He makes a recommendation. He is about to do everything wrong. And the terrible part is, he has no idea. This is the story of plague doctors. What they believed, what they did, why almost none of it worked, and why the people who hired them kept hiring them anyway. The Black Death arrived in Europe in 1347, carried on ships from the Black Sea. Within 4 years, it had killed somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population. The actual cause was Yersinia pestis, a bacterium carried by fleas that lived on rats. Nobody in the 14th century knew this. Nobody had any concept of bacteria. Nobody understood that disease could be transmitted by invisible organisms too small to see. What they believed instead was miasma theory. Disease came from bad air, rotting matter, swamps, the smell of decay. If the air smelled bad, the air was dangerous. If the air smelled good, you were safe. This single wrong idea shaped every single thing plague doctors did. Every treatment, every prevention, every piece of advice, all of it built on a foundation that was completely and catastrophically incorrect. Here is what your textbook probably did not tell you. Most plague doctors were not real doctors. Real physicians were expensive. And during plague outbreaks, real physicians did what wealthy people always do in a catastrophe. They left. They went to their country estates. They waited for the dying to stop. The people who stayed were the people who could not afford to leave. City councils, desperate, terrified, watching their populations collapse, hired whoever was available. Some were trained physicians who stayed out of dedication. Many were barber surgeons. Some were complete fraudsters with no medical training whatsoever, presenting themselves as qualified practitioners because there was no reliable way to check credentials in a city where half the record keepers were dead. Let's go through the treatments. All of them are real. Almost none of them helped. Several made things worse. Bloodletting was the most common. The theory, disease resulted from an imbalance of the 4 humors. Too much blood caused fever. Therefore, remove the blood. Plague doctors cut veins and drained blood into bowls. Patients already weakened by disease lost large quantities of blood on top of everything else. Some died faster as a direct result. Lancing the buboes came next. The swellings were cut open, drained, and cauterized with a hot iron. Agonizing. Occasionally useful. But the cauterization was done without antiseptic in environments crawling with additional infection. The cure frequently introduced new problems. Applying live chickens to the buboes was another treatment. The theory, the chicken would draw the poison out through its own skin. Plague doctors shaved the feathers from a chicken's rear end and pressed the bare skin against the bubo. When the chicken died, which it sometimes did, this was interpreted as proof that the poison was being drawn out successfully. A new chicken was applied. Bathing was actively discouraged. Opening the pores was believed to allow bad air into the body. Dehydrated plague patients were advised against water on the skin. Fruit and vegetables were considered dangerous. Patients were told to eat hot, dry foods and avoid water. None of it worked. All of it was standard medical practice. Charles Delorme designed the full plague doctor costume in 1619. Nearly 3 centuries after the Black Death began. The beak was packed with dried flowers, herbs, and camphor. The glass eye covers prevented miasma from reaching the eyes. The waxed leather coat kept bad air from the skin. From the perspective of miasma theory, this was a sophisticated and well-reasoned protective system. From the perspective of germ theory, it was nearly useless. The herbs in the beak did nothing against Yersinia pestis. The costume looked terrifying. Patients reportedly became more distressed after the doctor's arrival, not less. It is now the most recognizable symbol of medieval plague response, appearing on Halloween costumes, in video games, in tourism marketing for Venice. Almost nobody who sees it knows that it was designed 300 years after the Black Death, or that the herbs in the beak did nothing. If plague doctors did not work, why did cities keep paying for them? First, nobody knew they did not work. Without controlled studies or any systematic way to compare outcomes, There was no mechanism to determine that treated patients died at the same rate as untreated ones. Some patients recovered. Plague doctors took credit. Many died. Plague doctors blamed the severity of the disease, the stars, God's will, the patient's sins. Second, doing something felt better than doing nothing. City councils that hired plague doctors could tell their citizens the city was responding. Families that called the doctor could feel they had done everything possible. Third, some things plague doctors did actually helped, accidentally. Isolating sick patients reduced transmission. Burning the belongings of the dead reduced flea populations. Recording deaths gave cities data about the outbreak's spread. Fourth, the alternative was nothing. In a city where physicians had fled and half the population was dying, a plague doctor with a bird mask and a bag of useless medicine was better than an empty doorstep. Marginally, but better. The plague did not end because medicine got better. Germ theory was not established until the 1860s. The specific bacterium was not identified until 1894. The mechanism of flea transmission was not understood until 1898. By the time anyone understood what the plague actually was, it had been killing people in Europe for 5.5 centuries. Plague doctors practiced for all of those centuries. They wore their bird masks, drained blood from weakened patients, pressed chickens against swollen lymph nodes, and charged cities for the service. They were not frauds in the sense of knowing they were deceiving people. They were frauds in the deeper sense, practitioners operating with complete confidence in a framework that was completely incorrect. The bird mask is the symbol of that, a perfectly logical solution to the wrong problem, a rational response to a false theory, medicine that looked like medicine, prescribed by doctors who believed they were doctors, for a disease that nobody understood. The question that hangs over all of it is the same question every medical system in every era has to answer. How do you know what you think you know is actually true? The plague doctors didn't ask it. The patients paid the price.